Good evening, everybody. It is Steve Lookner with Agenda Free TV. We are here to bring you a live update on the investigation into the plane and helicopter collision and crash that happened on Wednesday night in Washington, D.C., right near Reagan National Airport. Actually, speaking of which, I was going to show you that. There is a live view of Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C., and we're going to take some of your comments on the air, bring you the latest updates. I actually would kind of like to watch the NTSB briefing because I was sleeping when that happened. So we might do that, and we'll talk about a bunch of topics related to this. So I appreciate you joining the stream. 67 people, all 67 on both aircraft, are presumed dead. And certainly condolences to their families in this terrible, tragic accident in Washington, D.C. And hold on a second here. You can give me a shout during the broadcast at Lookner on X. At Lookner on X is where you can reach me. And I will also be checking out the chat as well. Thanks also to our moderators. We have Ruth Krafasi and Roberts Mayqueen moderating over there on YouTube. I really appreciate it. Also Linda Belk and Larry over on X. Thank you for moderating over there. Also, our Twitch moderators, thank you. Good Luck Duck, Idaho Star, and Surly Dev. And our Facebook moderators as well. Really appreciate all of our moderators. One second here. Facebook is acting a little fidgety. There we go. I was there. Margaret Riley, thanks for being there, Margaret, moderating over there on Facebook. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about some of the latest updates here. Thanks, by the way, for your support. RGJ58, Desi Des, Fish Tacos, Eamon O'Leary, our member. Kellen, thanks for giving memberships to people in the YouTube chat. Thank you, Kellen. Also, Dodger Blue and Kerry Poteet, thank you for the memberships. And also thank you, Smelly Cat and Tander62 over there on Twitch. So, a number of things have been happening today, a number of developments today and tonight. Let's see. Oh, you know what I want to start by talking about? I want to recommend a video to you guys. It's really well done. I posted about it on my X account, but I want to recommend it and use it like as a jumping off point. Thanks to Desi Des, by the way, too. I know a number of you watch this channel. There is a channel called Blanco Lirio, and there's an aviation expert who does this channel. It's a YouTube channel, and his name is Juan Brown. And I have watched this channel for a while now. Whenever there's like an airplane crash or accident, I want to see what he has to say. And I mean, he to me he generally turns out right, and he also is really good at explaining what he thinks happened and what the contributing factors are and just overall how the accident happened. I mean, he doesn't claim to know everything, but he's really, really good, and he gives you a nice overview of things. So I do want to recommend that channel. He posted a new video today at some point. I'll post a link to it in the chat, where his belief is that his belief is that the helicopter flight, the helicopter was looking at another plane and thought they were looking at the American Airlines plane. And so they were trying to avoid the American Airlines plane. That's what they were supposed to avoid. But he thinks they were actually looking at a different plane and didn't see the American Airlines plane when they were looking at the other plane. So, and he talks about, I don't want to oversimplify, because he talks about a bunch of other contributing factors that could have played a role here as well. But I do want to recommend the video, and I'm going to actually post a link to it right now. It's about 10 minutes long, but he really does a good job. Something else he also does in that video is he uses, there's a channel called, I think, VAS, V-A-S Aviation, and he uses what they do is they post, that channel will assemble the air traffic control audio and put it together with a video, like it's like a flight radar video that shows where everything is. And it's really helpful to see that as well. So here is, I'm posting the link to the Blanco Lirio video, which I think is really helpful. So let me do that. I just posted it. And one of our viewers, Weird Guy, says the chopper was ascending and was higher than permitted. So he does talk about how he shows a chart of a flight chart for helicopters where they're supposed to be there. And he does mention that. He says it was higher than it's supposed to be when the crash happened. He talks about a bunch of contributing factors. Also, I mean, it's interesting. There's another video. A bunch of people sent me a video by somebody named Captain Steve, who I'm familiar with because I watch his TikToks a lot. He is a pilot, and he posted a video, and he also said that he thought that the helicopter was looking at another plane and thinking it was the American Airlines plane. And they don't just say this. I mean, they explain why they say this. You know, so they're not just saying, I think it was this, and you're like, well, why do you think that? These videos explain. So, but, you know, we talked about this last night, or earlier today, I guess. As many of you know, the air traffic control audio shows that shortly before the crash, I want to say about 15 seconds before the crash, the helicopter told air traffic control that they could see the plane. And something I was saying to you in our previous broadcast was like, how can it be that the helicopter right before the crash is saying we see the plane and then hit the plane, when apparently the plane, from everything I've seen and read, the plane was just doing what it would normally do. There's no evidence that I've seen that the plane somehow deviated from what you would expect it to do when it's coming in for a landing. So how is it that this helicopter is telling air traffic control that they have eyes on the plane, and then they collide with the plane? So, you know, one way to make sense of that would be to say, well, they actually didn't have eyes on the plane. They thought they did. Now, even if that is what happened, if these experts are saying, you know, people like Blanco Lirio, Juan Brown on the Blanco Lirio channel, if I have it right, he said he thinks it's more likely than not that the plane, that the helicopter was looking at a different plane and thought it was looking at the right plane when it was looking at the wrong plane. Again, the Captain Steve video said that as well. If that's the case, then there's this whole other question, which is, okay, so why were they looking at the wrong plane? The last fatal U.S. commercial aircraft accident in the U.S. was 2009, and that wasn't a collision. So you have to go back even further to get to the last collision. collisions involving aircraft like this in the U.S. are not common. If it was like a simple, if it was a relatively easy to make mistake, or at least not like a super rare mistake to not see a plane, to see the wrong plane or something, to think you're seeing one plane when you're seeing another, I would think these would happen more often. So my point is, like, okay, even if it turns out that the helicopter was looking at the wrong plane and thinking they were looking at the right plane, how does that mistake happen? I believe there's a pilot and the co-pilot in the helicopter. You would think that, that's something that shouldn't happen and doesn't happen. So why in this case does that happen? Because you would think it wouldn't be an easy thing to happen. I don't know enough about it, but if it were easier to happen, I mean, just you'd think that this kind of stuff would happen more often, or they would take other precautions. So, that's a whole other question, is what's the explanation for that if that's what it was? Hold on a second here. Hey guys, I'm just going to say this once. This happens sometimes when we cover a big news event. We get a lot of new people in the chat. If you're going to chat, you got to keep it respectful. If you're going to be disrespectful, if you're going to be rude, you're going to get timed out, or you're going to get hidden from the channel. I don't have the patience for it. If you want to act immature and rude and like a 7-year-old on whatever other channels you watch, be my guest. I don't have the patience for it. People in the chat don't want to read it. So you've been warned. That's my one warning. And the mods will take care of it. Mike C says either not an accident or extreme incompetence. Understaffed control tower is a red herring. I'm going to mention that story, which has come out tonight, which is about the control tower possibly not having the amount of people in it, possibly not having the normal amount of air traffic controllers in it. We'll talk about that in a second. Thank you, Mike C. and Zara Revolta and Kellen. And Kellen mentioned staffing issues. We'll talk about that. Yeah, thank you, G Lee, and PZ Papa Zulu, and Desi Des. Has the military put out a statement yet? Maybe we can, I played it. I don't want to play it right this second, but Pete Hegseth, who is the head of the Department of Defense, put out a statement in the morning, this morning. Well, I guess it was Thursday morning. So if you remind, maybe we can play that again later. But just to be clear, that was a statement from the military, because it's from the Secretary of Defense. You can go to Pete Hegseth on X, for example, and look at it there. Maybe we'll play it in a little bit. I wouldn't mind. It's short, but I don't want to play it right this second. Okay. Have they recovered all the bodies, says Kurt? Last I heard they had not, but I don't know if that has changed. And our viewer, Wise Old Geezer, says, shouldn't even have traffic crossing into a landing glide path. That's stupid to have allowed that. Now, that's the way it is there. I mean, it's common, from what I understand, for helicopters to be crossing over this path that planes take to land at the airport. Will that be something that changes in the future? I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what the investigation by the NTSB determines the cause of this was, and whether they will recommend any kind of policy changes at the airport. Oh, and I do want to pull up here the ADSB exchange map there, because I think it's helpful to look at the tracking map, and I'll post a link to this as well. Right. Where is it here? It's here somewhere. Here it is. No, that's not it. is there. Okay. ADSB Exchange is a flight tracking website. ADSBexchange.com. Oh, you can't see it right now. There it is. And I'll post a link to this. They actually posted, ADSB Exchange, a map where you can see the flight information for the plane and the helicopter. And I'm going to post a link to this right now so you can look at it if you want. I just posted that. And in case you're not familiar, you have this plane coming in to land on this runway here at the airport. There's the airport. The plane is coming in here, and the helicopter is coming from this direction here. So helicopter coming this way, plane coming this way. The helicopter is supposed to have the plane in view and be able to avoid the hitting it. And something else that Juan Brown pointed out in his video, Blanco Lirio video on YouTube, is he said that this helicopter, according to Juan, he showed a flight chart, some sort of chart showing what path and height restrictions helicopters are supposed to follow. It's actually, I can actually probably show you that. That's from Sky Vector. Really quick, I'll post a link so you can see it. Again, what you should do is go to watch Juan Brown's video. Again, his channel's called Blanco Lirio on YouTube. It's a great video. I posted the link to the video on my X account, so I'd really suggest watching that. But the chart he pulled up is right, I have it here, or the map he pulled up. Oh, where is it here? I had it. It's at Sky Vector. Sky Vector, DCA. Where is it here? DC Heli. This is it. Okay. So I'm going to post a link to it. This is a site called Sky Vector, skyvector.com. So it's just, I'll post a link to skyvector.com. If you go to skyvector.com and you look up DCA, which is the airport, Reagan National Airport, and then you go to helicopters, you get this. I think I clicked the heli, DC Heli up here. I clicked DC Heli here. This is a chart. Juan shows this chart, and he shows how the helicopter, he says, was following this flight path, which helicopters are supposed to follow. And he says if you look at the numbers, I'm not going to, I mean, again, if you want all the specifics, go to his video. But he says you can look at the numbers here and see like the, and you can see the flight height restrictions. So for example, if I have it right, he says like, see how here it says 200? Juan said that when a plane, and that says 200 there, Juan says when a helicopter is flying near the airport, it's not supposed to go above 200 feet. I'm not a professional, so I can't read to this stuff, but that's what Juan pointed out. He knows what he's doing, and he has done this for a living. So anyways, you can go to Sky Vector and you can look up this chart. You just click on DC Heli when you get to DCA Airport and look it up. But I don't want to get locked into the chart. If you want to see more, go to Blanco Lirio video. But my point was in saying that is that according to Juan, he said that if you look at that chart, you can see this helicopter is not supposed to be 200 feet, above 200 feet when it's in this area. And he says the crash occurred above 200 feet. And you can actually see here, if you look at this, this says 400 feet for the helicopter. This says 350. I don't know the exact paths, but it was somewhere above, it looked like it was somewhere above 200 feet. And what Juan also said is that what happens in this area, for air traffic controllers in this area, they're assuming that the planes are at one height and the helicopters are at another height. And if that's the case, if they're at different heights, then even if their paths cross, they're not going to hit each other, because the heights are different. So that's a whole other issue here. The New York Times had said tonight also that the helicopter was believed to be higher than it should have been. What did they say here? Let me just see if I can find that quick. I posted about it earlier. Helicopter. They said that helicopter is said to have been flying higher than it should have been. So, there's there's the path they're on, but there's also their height they're at. And you can see here that the plane is descending here. It's going from 800, 770, 725, 500, 450, 425, 400. It's at around 350 there. And the helicopter was at 200 here, 200, 200, 200, 200. Remember, I guess from what Lon Brown says, the limit's 200. Then it starts going up. Now, I can't explain this. I'm not an expert. Was it going up because it thought it was trying to avoid something? I don't know. That's going to be something that's looked into. But again, if you want to look at this map here, the plane is coming in this way to land on the runway. The helicopter's coming in this way. Twice the helicopter told air traffic control, according to air traffic audio, that it had eyes on this plane, including, they initially said they had eyes on the plane. So if you watch Blanco Lirio video, or I'm guessing there's other videos out there you can watch, maybe the Captain Steve video, what you see in that air traffic control audio is that originally, as the helicopter is approaching this area from the north, air traffic control says something like, hey, there's this passenger jet, I think they say a CRJ or whatever it is, coming from the south. I'm just paraphrasing here. Can you see it? It's coming to your south. And they say something in response like, yes, we see it. And they request visual separation, which is when the helicopter is basically telling air traffic control, we're good, we can see it, we take the responsibility for avoiding the aircraft. You don't have to help us avoid it because we can see it, and we're going to do that because we can just see it visually. So, and then a little after that, the air traffic control reached out to them again because the planes were getting closer. I think there might have even been some sort of warning that air traffic control got. But either way, the air traffic control saw that the plane and the helicopter were getting closer, and they reached out to the helicopter again to mention this plane, and the helicopter again said, same thing, we see it, requesting visual separation. And then roughly about, I want to say 10 to 15 seconds later, the crash happened. So twice that helicopter told air traffic control as it was going down this way that it had eyes on this plane. And they told them about it, and air traffic control told them about it twice. And then just seconds after the second time the helicopter said they saw the plane, they collided with the plane. And again, as I mentioned, a couple of YouTube channels with experts who run them, Blanco Lirio channel and also Captain Steve channel, both of them think that the helicopter was looking at the wrong plane. And they thought they were looking at the plane that air traffic control was telling them to look out for, but they weren't. I don't know that for sure, but I certainly give a lot of credibility to these experts. Was there another plane? Yeah, so without getting into the details of it, you can find it in these videos. There's basically a steady stream of planes that was coming in and landing on this kind of path. There was a plane behind it, for example. There were planes taking off. So there were other planes in the area. I can't tell you which one it might have been and why they might have thought one rather than the other. But there were other planes in the area. But again, even if they were looking at the wrong plane, why were they possibly at a height that they should not have been at? Again, from my understanding, there is a ceiling that the helicopter is not supposed to be above. And so even if they're literally at the same, latitude and longitude as that plane, in theory, they should be below the plane because the plane is one height and the helicopter has this ceiling to make sure they don't get up to where the planes are in the area. So that's a whole other question. And then if they did see the wrong plane, why? Both the pilot and the co-pilot saw the wrong plane? Then you wonder, why didn't they see? Is that like a rookie mistake? Is that something that, if you're going to make that kind of mistake, should you not be on this kind of mission? I don't know. I'm just saying, if that's the reason, why did they make that mistake is a whole other question. So, but we don't know for sure that that's what happened. Anyways, I'm going to post this link again to this chart, this map from ADSB Exchange, and you can pull up the map yourself on ADSB Exchange and look at it. You can also do this thing if you click on these dots, it'll move the aircraft back in time. See that? I'm clicking on the dots and it's moving them back in time. So and you can zoom out and you can see, the larger flight path here. So it's a helpful map. And again, that is from adsbexchange.com. So you can check them out, and I posted the link to it. By the way, thank you to Lee Gray and Ken Lance and Mark Steven and Jack Horicon for the gift memberships. Thank you, Jack. Also, Gigi. Gigi says in the helicopter they were wearing night vision devices. Yes, that is what I've seen reported. And Gigi, is it Gigi? Gigi says, from personal experience, I can say in areas of high lighting and low field of vision, trying to spot an airplane in a city of lights is not easy whatsoever. One point that Juan Brown made in his video on Blanco Lirio is he said that from his experience flying planes, in a situation like this, the lights of a plane you're trying to look at can blend into the city lights behind it. There's also that question about if they were wearing night vision goggles, did that impair them in any way that might have led to this? Thank you, Saudi BB, who says, sad that people are trying to turn this into a conspiracy. Thank you also, Hard Knock 93 and Adrian R. I appreciate that, Adrian R., and thanks for shouting out the moderators, Adrian. And now a whole other thing, by the way, is I have no idea about this. Was there anything? So we've been talking about, did the helicopter mess up? Did the helicopter think it was looking at one plane and was looking at the other plane? But you might also ask, is there anything that air traffic control did or didn't do that should have been done differently? I couldn't tell you. I know nothing about what they're supposed to do, but you might wonder, even if the helicopter was looking at the wrong plane, and even if the helicopter was flying higher than it should have been, even in that case, is there normally something that the air traffic control would do to help avoid this happen? I have no idea. I can't tell you. That's going to be something I'm sure that's looked into. But I want to bring this up because in a second I want to talk about this, not that. Control tower at National Airport understaffed before deadly collision. So, that might be a different one that I want to, let's see here. Yes, this has the thing in it. So there's multiple outlets reporting on this tonight. Again, I'm not telling you what I have no idea what the cause was, but I want to mention this. But before I do, I'll take a couple more comments, and then we'll go on to that. Molly O says, so sad. Yes, Chaz thinks it's the helicopter's fault entirely. A whole other thing you could wonder is, is part of the problem the situation? There's lots of reporting out there and lots of people who know about this stuff who say this is a very busy airport. It's very challenging. There's more passengers there who fly in and out than it's supposed to. It was originally supposed to handle. Is the situation at that airport with the amount of traffic and and helicopters being there and who knows what else, is that situation in itself too dangerous a situation, which makes it more likely that these kind of things could happen? So that's a whole other avenue that I'm guessing investigators will look at. Tim Riley said, saw a report saying the Hilo pilot had 1,000 hours in the BH in the Black Hawk. I saw a report about the experience. Some report saying the pilot had 1,000 hours and the co-pilot had 500 hours, but don't trust me on that. I'll try to dig that up. I'm sure I have that here somewhere, so I'll try to dig up the exact numbers in the exact report. Yune Antoinette says air traffic control told them twice, not much more he could have done. And again, I don't know what the normal protocol is for air traffic control, how much they tell them and when they tell them and all that. I'm sure experts do. I don't. Also, Director Prepper says, why did the traffic collision avoidance system fail? So we'll talk about that too. That's this thing called TCAS. But one explanation I have seen, for example, Blanco Lirio, this is a Washington Post headline here, why the anti-collision scene system might not have prevented the plane crash. One explanation I've seen in articles, and also Juan Brown from Blanco Lirio talked about this. He said there's an article also in the War Zone, which maybe we'll look at today. But for example, there is a system that is designed to keep planes from crashing into each other, but in this situation, it wouldn't function the way it would if it was two planes just higher up in the air. One issue is that when planes get low enough, certain parts of this system are turned off because they don't want a situation where this collision avoidance system is telling a plane to descend when it's already really low to the ground, because then you have the risk of a plane actually hitting the ground because it's descending. And also, so that's there's the plane. This TCAS system doesn't work in its full capacity when planes are low to the ground. Also, there's a question about whether the helicopter even had such a system. There's that as well. So, but I'll read you more about that. Again, I'm not an expert. I'm just telling you stuff I have heard. Trent Ains thinks the airport area is a little too busy. Daniela Murphy said Captain Steve made it very understandable. Monty Cardman says, is there a timeline on when the data from the black box will be reported? No. I want to say, we'll look at it in a little bit. I think the NTSB might have said today that they might have a preliminary report in 30 days, but I want to actually watch what they said. But I'll show you this. This was put out by the NTSB today. We need NTSB. I want to go to their X account. They have some pictures they posted. NTSB investigators recovered the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder from the Bombardier CRJ-700 airplane involved in yesterday's mid-air collision at Reagan National Airport. The recorders are at the NTSB labs for evaluation. So they posted some photos. That's either one or both of them. Or is that a container containing one or both of them? There is another picture there. Actually, maybe make it a little smaller for you. Oops, hold on. Flight recorder, do not, probably says do not touch or something, but they can touch it. Let me actually move that picture up a little bit so you can see. But that is them working with either the cockpit voice recorder or the flight data recorder. They have recovered both. Yes, everybody on both aircraft was killed. Hang on a second here. All right, let's talk about this. Control tower at National Airport understaffed before deadly collision. There is reporting tonight that says that one person was doing a job at the time of this accident that normally two people would be doing. And that, as I understand it, I think the New York Times report said that at 9:30 p.m. they would normally switch from 2 to 1 people, but they made the switch a bit early on Wednesday night because someone had asked to leave early, I think. So let me see what this is the Washington Post article. By the way, I have no idea, even if that's true, whether that contributed at all to this accident. Maybe it had nothing to do with it. But let's talk about it, though. By the way, thanks to the Ringa X, and the Ringa X believes that Blackhawks don't have TCAS. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to check. And I like for example, I've seen a couple of articles which said they weren't sure if this particular craft had it. So maybe it didn't. The helicopter. Anyways, thank you. I'll try to look at the Washington Post article because I should have it here. Thank you also, Greg Andrew. Okay, so you can see here Washington Post says the air traffic controller at the air traffic control tower at Reagan National Airport was understaffed on Wednesday evening when the crash occurred, according to a government report about the circumstances. According to the report described to the Washington Post, 2 people were handling the jobs of 4, among other colleagues inside National's control tower at the time of the collision. The control tower staffing levels, the report concludes, were not normal for the time of day or the amount of air traffic over D.C., where an average of more than 100 helicopters a day zip underneath arriving and departing airline flights. The crash occurred around 8:50 p.m. and its cause remained unclear tonight. While federal investigators hunt for answers, chiefly how this could happen, when airplanes and helicopters also are often equipped with software to detect nearby aircraft, a portrait emerged of a cramped and swarming airspace, the subject of safety warnings by federal officials and lawmakers, and the site of a number of close calls in recent years, including about 24 hours before the crash on Wednesday. The day before, another plane had to abort a landing at National to avoid a crash with a helicopter, says the Washington Post. On Wednesday night, the position of helicopter controller, a role typically staffed until 9:30 p.m., had been combined ahead of the crash with that of local controller, according to the report. Doubling up those roles can create challenges for an air traffic controller, especially if the airspace is busy. The roles use different radio frequencies, and airplane pilots and helicopter pilots cannot necessarily hear each other, even if they're both in touch with the tower. By the way, that could be another contributing factor here, which is that the helicopter, I've seen a number of experts and articles saying this, that the helicopter and the plane would be talking to the control tower on different frequencies, so they wouldn't hear the other, which would give them less information about what was going on. Okay. The NTSB said they would leave no stone unturned in their investigation. That may not answer why this happened for months. They will examine the role played by air traffic controllers. Okay. On Wednesday night, according to the Air Traffic Safety Report that is distributed daily to air traffic managers and federal transportation officials, there were 5 controllers and 1 trainee controller on duty. In addition, there was 1 supervisor and 1 supervisor in training. The report said the helicopter control position, or HC, was combined with the local controller, or LC, position. It did not say what time that change occurred, but the HC helicopter control position is normally staffed from 10 a.m. to 9:30 p.m., but can be consolidated at the discretion of the supervisor on duty. Additionally, the roles of flight data controller and clearance delivery controller had also been combined that evening, according to the report. The Air Traffic Controllers Labor Union has warned in recent years that a thinly stretched workforce poses a risk to safety. The NTSB will seek to determine who was filling which posts in the tower and whether any of the controllers on duty were fatigued. And let's see here. This talks about the incident the day before the crash. An incident one day before the fatal crash in which a different jet coming in for a landing alerted the tower it had to abort a landing attempt because of a helicopter that appeared in its flight path. On Tuesday, a female voice in the cockpit of Republic Airways Flight 4514 informed the tower of the problem at roughly 8:05 p.m. Tuesday night. The plane took a sharp turn to the west, made a loop to try a second approach, and safely landed about 10 minutes later. The crowded airspace around Reagan National Airport has long been a topic of heated debate among policymakers and members of Congress, says the Post. Wednesday's crash occurred in one of the most complex air traffic corridors in the United States, where military helicopters fly near passenger jets and key sites such as the White House, Capitol, and the Pentagon. The airport is operating well above its capacity. It was designed to handle 15 million passengers annually, but numbers have soared to 25 million. Okay, so, it does say here that the control tower staffing levels were not normal for the time of day. It points out that normally there is a person whose only job on duty is helicopter controller until 9:30 p.m., but sometime before 9:30, that had been combined with the post of local controller. And the New York Times posted about this. They had a report about this. And what the New York Times said tonight is they said that, similar to what the Washington Post said, that they said that the handling of helicopter traffic and the handling of planes is usually done separately from 10 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. And then after 9:30 p.m., those duties are usually combined because air traffic is less. But an air traffic control supervisor, said the New York Times, combined those duties sometime before 9:30 p.m. and allowed one air traffic controller to leave early. That's what the New York Times is reporting. Now, so I don't know if that person asked to leave early, but someone was allowed to leave early. And again, the crash happened about 8:45 p.m. or so, about 45 minutes before 9:30. So, to repeat, I have no idea if it's true that they had less staffing than they might normally have. Did that contribute at all to the crash? Or would experts look at what air traffic control did and say, well, in this case, we looked at it and there really is no different. If there were more air traffic controllers there, it wouldn't have been any different what they told the plane and the helicopter. I don't know. I don't have that information. Mike C. says something like this should never happen in the most protected airspace in the U.S. Fermi's paradox says it would stand to reason not to fly copters in a landing approach area of a major airport. That is done there. I mean, look, it says here, an average of more than 100 helicopters a day zip underneath arriving and departing airline flights. Again, those helicopters have a ceiling they're supposed to stay below. That ceiling is supposed to keep the helicopters and the planes at different heights. So, you know, if the helicopters stay below a certain height, and then the planes always stay at a height above that or higher, then they won't crash. But they did crash Wednesday night. One of the viewers said, why does the military not have their own controller in the tower? So my guess is that you might want just a unified control, just to so the control has all the information and you don't have two separate controllers who would need to share information. I don't know for sure. That would just be a guess I have, is that they would want one central control for the airspace. Illinois Edit said planes and helicopters cannot be hacked. There was someone who posted a thread I read today. Who was it who posted this? Who was saying, like, they had no evidence this was a cyber attack, but they thought it was something that investigators would at least look into. Gosh, I can't remember who posted this thread. I read this thread today and I can't remember who posted it. I think it was reposted by John Ostrower, but who was the original poster? Maybe I can find it for you, and I can at least tell you if you want to read it. But the person said, like, look, it's at least something they would look at. I have seen no reporting that suggests that happened, but I know, what can I tell you? Anyways, I can't find that right now. If I find it during the broadcast, I'll let you know. Madman Productions says it's worth looking into, but doesn't sound like that. maybe in a little bit, we'll take a look at what the NTSB had to say today. By the way, thank you to Greg Andrew, and thanks for shouting out the mods. We should also talk about the TCAS thing too. I want to mention that. Thanks also Ukrainian 20 for your support. Shout out to our moderators who are here. Over on Twitch, we have Idaho Star, Nightbot, Sarah, and Tariag. On Facebook, Margaret Riley is over there moderating. Thank you. Linda Belk and Larry on X. And over on YouTube, Roberts May Queen, Ruth Krafasi, and Cynthia Moon. And everybody, all of our other moderators, I appreciate you guys tuning in for our kind of a late night update on this. I had to sleep during the day because we were up all night covering this. But also, I wanted to get you caught up on some of the stuff that's been coming out tonight. For example, we talked about this report that there was the staffing level at the airport when this happened was reportedly lower than it normally would have been. We talked about that. We talked about reports that the helicopter had flown above where it was supposed to be flying. I want to mention about this as well. The anti-collision system. We should talk about that too. And take some of your comments here. And I do, again, want to recommend a very good video. I thought it was really good. From Blanco Lirio channel, which is a channel that I follow. It's run by an aviation expert, Juan Brown. And he posted an excellent video about the crash today. He usually posts, in my experience, when there's a big airplane crash, he will look at the data and then sometime during the next day or so come out with a video talking about it and explaining it and offering any kind of analysis he has about it. And I'm going to post the video right now in the chat, the link to the video. But he thinks that he explains why he thinks this. He thinks that the helicopter was looking at another plane when in thinking that was the American Airlines plane. So he plays the air traffic control audio in his video. You can hear it on 2 different occasions. Air traffic control reaches out to the helicopter about this plane that they are approaching. And twice, both times, the helicopter tells air traffic control they can see the plane. And the second time that, and both times that the helicopter asked the air traffic control to give them visual separation, which is where air traffic control says, okay, you have the responsibility for avoiding the plane because you can see it. So they're telling air traffic control, we can see it well enough to avoid it. We'll take responsibility for avoiding it based on the fact that we can see it. And the second time they told air traffic control that was just around, I think, 10 or 15 seconds before the crash. So why did that helicopter tell twice air traffic control, including seconds before the crash, that they could see the plane and see it well enough to request visual separation, to request that they be given the responsibility themselves for avoiding the plane based on just seeing it? Why would they say that and then collide with the plane? Well, some experts, including Blanco Lirio, is Juan Brown, think that the helicopter actually was looking at a different plane and was looking at the wrong plane. But a nice thing about that video is he also talks about other possible contributing factors to this crash. So I thought it's a really good video. It's like 10 minutes long. It's really worth watching, I think. And he does a very good job. Yeah, and Chica says, Captain Steve. I'll actually post a link to Captain Steve's video too. As I said before, I'm familiar with Captain Steve from his TikTok videos. He's an airline pilot, and he also posted a video about this, and he believes as well that that the helicopter was looking at the wrong plane. So I'll post a link to Captain Steve's video as well. Yes, it was a clear night. My try for reals. Hang on a moment here. Also, real quick, I will post the link in the chat. Again, this is adsbexchange.com. You can go to them. They're a flight tracking website. They have a page posted where you can see the paths and the heights and the times of the plane on the bottom that's coming to land at the airport and the helicopter. The helicopter is PAT-25. The plane is flight 5342. So I will post a link to this and you can see the flight paths and you can actually click on these dots and go back in time and move the aircraft around and see where they were. But it's a helpful page there. So I'll post that link right now as well. Can we talk about the victims? Yeah, Richie MC in a little bit will mention the victims and talk about that some too. Thank you, by the way, too, as I'm going to go over here. Thank you. That's a live shot of the airport, by the way, from Reuters. Thank you, JB, who says possible danger of air traffic control being too confident in military helicopter pilots because they're so common. AFB is Air Force bases right there and are really competent pilots. Too used to being able to trust that they always know what they're doing. It's an interesting theory. So it sounds like what JB is saying is something like, so I don't want to put words in JB's mouth, but it's this possibility JB is raising, if I understand JB right, is like, so this was a training flight by this helicopter. Now, I am not in a position to assess. I've heard about the amount of hours that the pilot and co-pilot flew, but that doesn't mean anything to me because I don't know how many people normally fly and stuff. So, but if the air traffic control knew it was a training flight, would they have treated the situation any differently? I would think that if the answer is yes, then they would have a procedure for letting air traffic control know that already. But again, I just don't know. Everything else says calling it a training flight is a misnomer. It was annual requalification the crew was experienced. Yeah, again, I don't know how much they were experienced compared to other pilots. So I don't know how much the usual has. I think the words that, didn't Pete Hegseth call it like relatively experienced or something like that? Hang on a second here. Yeah, Pete Hegseth says it was an annual proficiency training flight. It was a fairly experienced crew. Here's what he said about it. This was in the morning. I'll show you this right now. But this is the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who talked about this on Thursday morning. Might as well. It's 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes long. I'll just play it for you.
All right, update this morning. Just got off the phone with the Southcom commander and the chairman, the Joint Chiefs, talking about our efforts at Guantanamo Bay. That is ongoing. We're leaning forward on supporting the president's directive to make sure that we have a location for violent criminal illegals as they are deported out of the country. No one's going to wait on the Defense Department, and we're working that in real time. But I also wanted to give an update on the tragedy that happened last night here in Washington, D.C., and provide a little bit more information as we are actively working to investigate and understand what occurred and why. At about 8:48 last night, a UH-60 assigned to the U.S. Army Aviation Brigade in the Military District of Washington, Fort Belvoir, Virginia, collided tragically with a civilian airliner. The unit involved, the Army unit involved, was Bravo Company 12th Aviation Battalion at Fort Belvoir. It was an annual proficiency training flight. And when we look at the crew, and not all kin have been notified, so we're going to withhold ranks and names at this point. We do know on our side who was involved. It was a fairly experienced crew, and that was doing a required annual night evaluation. They did have night vision goggles. The 12th Aviation Battalion, as of now, is granted a 48-hour operational pause on contingency missions as what happened is reviewed, and a senior level aviation team, an investigative team from our Aviation Safety Center, was deployed last night and already is in Washington, D.C. to investigate what's going on. We anticipate that the investigation will quickly be able to determine whether the aircraft was in the corridor and at the right altitude at the time of the incident. As I mentioned, next of kin notifications are ongoing. It's a tragedy, a horrible loss of life for those 64 souls on that civilian airliner, and of course, the 3 soldiers in that Black Hawk. They're in our prayers, their families and their communities. As people are notified, I can't imagine. And I know it's gone from a rescue mission to a recovery mission, and we're with all the first responders that are moving actively too. So at the Defense Department, our thoughts and prayers go out. We are actively investigating to find out what happened and why. And as we get updates, you will have them. God bless.
So that was in the morning. That was on Thursday morning. We also covered, if you want, I think a number of you have seen it, but if you want to watch it, we covered the Trump press conference, press briefing on the crash, which happened shortly after that. All right, I want to get into, we said we were going to talk about the anti-collision system, the TCAS system, traffic alert and collision avoidance system. One of our viewers said, like, why didn't this system prevent them from crashing into each other, the planes? So I want to talk about this. The plane and the helicopter, I'm sorry. But, before I do, I have a couple photos I wanted to show you here. I think some of these might be new. Are these new photos? Hold on a second here. I don't think so. Let me pull up these photos. So this is from AP. Mid-air collision kills 67 people in the deadliest U.S. air disaster in almost a quarter century. So, also, before I even do that, I know a lot of you have seen this, but I think it's helpful to see. This is, there's a couple videos. I have access to a couple videos now. So here is a video. This is from Reuters. Investigators find black boxes after deadly plane crash. Continue to search for answers. This is from Reuters. So one thing I have here is the video of, hang on a moment, the plane, a couple different videos of the incident, which I want to just show you. And I know some of you have seen them, but for those who haven't, or in case you want to see them again, I want to show that. Let me just put this up there. Here's one. This is the one from EarthCam via Reuters. Here's the second one. Okay, here to begin is the first one. Again, this is via Reuters, and they got this from EarthCam. So this is the, throw this up there, right there. Surveillance footage shows the midair collision. And they have it, and then they zoomed in on it. So it's still just crazy that this happened. It's just unbelievable to see this happening. So here is see the helicopter approaching the plane right there. One of our viewers' default settings says, wouldn't there be more videos? So many cams around DC. Maybe more will turn up. I don't know how many cameras would be looking up in the sky like that in that area, but maybe there are more. And then the other one is, now the other one is in this video, but I think this video is like a more full report. So let me just go and find it. Here it is. I'll actually probably play the whole video, but just to show you right here from this video, hold on.
Just before 9 p.m. Wednesday night, surveillance footage appears to show a sudden fireball over the sky. The mid-air collision occurred as the passenger jet was approaching to land at Reagan.
We can do 33 for Blue 6342.
Radio communications between the air traffic control tower and the Black Hawk showed the helicopter knew the plane was in the vicinity.
This was not unusual.
That's just a crazy video. Terrible.
33 for Blue 6342.
Radio communications between the air traffic control tower and the Black Hawk showed the helicopter knew the plane was in the vicinity.
This was not on
sky. The mid-air collision occurred at a.m. Wednesday night. Surveillance footage appears to show a sudden fireball over the sky. The mid-air collision occurred as
It's unbelievable. I'll actually, I'm just going to play this. It's not that long a video. I'll just play this video. They have some other stuff in it. This is from Reuters. So let's just play this. Then we'll talk about the TCAS system.
People were feared dead on Thursday after an American Airlines jet collided with a U.S. Army helicopter over Washington, D.C.
We are now at a point where we are switching from a rescue operation to a recovery operation. At this point, we don't believe there are any survivors from this accident.
District of Columbia Fire and Rescue Chief John Donnelly said the regional jetliner coming from Wichita, Kansas, fell into the freezing waters of the Potomac River near Reagan Washington National Airport. American Airlines confirmed 60 passengers and 4 crew members were aboard the jet. A U.S. official said the Black Hawk military helicopter was carrying 3 soldiers on a training flight.
Did you see that? 472.
Air traffic control audio recorded an aircraft calling in, apparently referring to the crash just before 9 p.m. Wednesday night. Surveillance footage appears to show a sudden fireball over the sky. The mid-air collision occurred as the passenger jet was approaching to land at Reagan.
We can do 33 for Blue 6342.
Radio communications between the air traffic control tower and the Black Hawk showed the helicopter knew the plane was in the vicinity.
This was not unusual with a military aircraft flying the river and aircraft landing at DCA.
U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said both the helicopter and the airplane had been flying standard flight patterns, and there had been no breakdown in communication.
What I've seen so far, do I think this was preventable? Absolutely.
Airspace is frequently crowded in the U.S. capital region, home to 3 commercial airports and several major military facilities. Passengers on the flight included ice skaters, family, and coaches returning from events in Wichita, including Russian-born former world champions Evgenia Shishkova and Vadim Naumov. Russian media said Shishkova and Naumov, who were married and working as coaches, were returning from Wichita with a group of young skaters. The Kremlin offered condolences to the families of Russians killed. More than 60 people were feared dead on Thursday after...
Okay. So, yeah, another thing about this, Ruth says so sad. Jean Romaine says it's very sad. Yeah, we'll talk about this in a little bit. A number of figure skaters and their families and coaches died on the plane. This is also a thing where, it seems like it's quite possible that if the helicopter had been a little higher or a little lower, it would be a close call. And maybe there'd be like a little news item about it somewhere, close call at the airport, right? Because if we assume, I'll let the NTSB do their investigation, but I've heard nothing suggesting this was intentional at this point. So if it was an accident, again, if the helicopter is 20 feet higher or 30 feet lower or whatever, maybe it just narrowly misses it. And, you hear about close calls at airports, but in this case, they actually hit each other. But a little higher, a little lower, maybe we'd just be talking about a close call. it sort of reminds me of the when the ship knocked down the bridge in Baltimore. Was that last year? Basically what it looked like happened, I don't even know if this has been, I haven't seen reporting suggesting that was intentional, but what it looked like happened, if I remember right, is that the ship lost power and it couldn't control itself, and it ended up running into that support of the bridge. But if it had lost power a little later, then it would have been past the bridge. So, or maybe it could have lost power somewhere where it just went under the bridge. So there's a degree of luck as well, or bad luck. Okay, I want to talk about the TCAS in a second here. Let's see. You can see they also talk about the flight, the staffing in this article. One controller rather than two was handling local plane and helicopter traffic on Wednesday night at Reagan National, a situation deemed not normal, but considered adequate for lower volumes of traffic, according to a person briefed on the matter, says Reuters. The decision to combine duties in the evening is not uncommon, the source said. The New York Times first reported the not normal designation. A CNN reporter had also said that this situation is not uncommon. And you can see here, air traffic control recordings appear to capture the final attempted communications with the helicopter before it collided with the jet. PAT-25, do you have a CRG, that's the plane, CRJ plane in sight? PAT-25 passed behind the CRJ, an air traffic controller says at 8:47 p.m., according to a recording on liveatc.net. Seconds later, another aircraft calls to air traffic control saying, "Tower, did you see that?" apparently referring to the crash. But as we said, twice the helicopter told air traffic control that it saw the plane. It had the plane in its sights. And the second time it said that was just seconds before it collided with it. RJ says a lot of close calls at that particular airport. Long Journey says right now running out of close calls. They have those daily from what I've seen on the online there. I know there have been some prominent close calls at that airport in the last year or so. There was one article that talked about a couple of them that we talked about. Yeah, I think it was yesterday when we were covering this. Child of the King says, does a helicopter like that have a black box too? That's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe I can get you a quick answer. But I don't know. Let's see here. Old Paint says yes. TJ Adams says I don't know. Not sure. ChatGPT says the U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter UH-60 is equipped with a flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder in some configurations. Mike Kelly thinks there's no flight recorder in there. I do not know. Rev Time West thinks no. Joanne Murdoch says air traffic controllers have a very important job. Agreed. One of our viewers asked if the people on board would have been killed on impact. That I don't know. Obviously, you hope the people didn't suffer more than they had to, but I do not know. K. Russ says, if it's for training, why not have a black box? Okay, let's talk about this anti-collision system. I said we were going to talk about this, and we haven't even talked about it. By the way, thank you, Mama 457 Rose and Kurt W9BBW. All right, so let's talk about this technology that many aircraft have that's supposed to help avoid collisions. This is a Washington Post article. The crash has brought fresh attention to a technology known as TCAS, Traffic Alert and Collision Avoidance System, which was developed to prevent airplanes from colliding in midair after several tragic crashes. Funded by the FAA, the transponder-based system became mandatory for large airliners in the U.S. in 1993, and it is now common on all manner of commercial aircraft globally. Most military helicopters, such as the Black Hawk that was involved in the collision with the aircraft, are not equipped with TCAS, but do have transponders that can interact with planes. So the Post says that most military helicopters don't have the system themselves. How does it work? The system is designed to continuously detect other aircraft within a range of about 12 miles, which goes well beyond the usual safety buffer of 3 to 5 miles apart horizontally and 1,000 feet vertically. The transponders on planes automatically communicate with one another, relaying their position in the air, but pilots determine what course to take. If two planes are converging, TCAS displays their position to flight crews and sends an alert when the system projects they are 30 to 60 seconds from an impact, according to researchers and government reports. At that point, the pilots get an audio notification, traffic, traffic. If the planes continue on a course toward a collision, TCAS will suggest a resolution advisory on maneuvering vertically once it projects there are 15 to 30 seconds for a crash. I assume it means that it'll say to one plane go up and the other plane go down. How effective is TCAS? Aviation experts say TCAS has been a powerful tool in preventing crashes. There have not been any mid-air collisions in the U.S. involving an aircraft equipped with a functioning anti-collision system and another with a working transponder since the TCAS technology became mandatory. I guess this would be the first one of those. Still, TCAS is not completely fail-safe. In 2002, a cargo plane and a Russian passenger jet, both equipped with TCAS, collided in Germany, over Germany, killing all 71 crew members and passengers. An investigation pointed out that an air traffic controller instructed the Russian jet to descend while its TCAS guidance directed the crew to climb. By disregarding its own TCAS, the Russian pilots defeated the coordination logic between the two planes. Would TCAS have alerted the plane before the collision? So again, the article says the plane has the system installed. The article said most Blackhawks would, most Army Blackhawks, did it say, would not have it installed. Most military helicopters would not have it installed, but would have a transponder so that the plane systems would detect the helicopter. Okay, so would the TCAS system have alerted the plane that the helicopter was close to it? Many details of the collision remain unclear, says the Washington Post, but it appears that the passenger plane and Black Hawk helicopter collided at low altitude, and TCAS is not designed to send alerts at low altitude. A number of our viewers were saying this during our previous coverage. Jim Broshley, an Air Force veteran, said helicopters are, so we talked about this. Helicopters are supposed to fly at an altitude at or below 200 feet along the final approach to National Airport's runway 33. Even if airplane and helicopter pilots are doing everything right, they potentially only have a separation of a couple hundred feet, he said. If the plane was flying below 500 feet above the ground, the system probably would not have sent an audio alert or a resolution advisory saying, go up or go down to pilots, according to system manuals and experts. It is very unlikely that the TCAS on the airliner would have provided any alerts to the flight crew, says Olson of MIT. Why? Why wouldn't the TCAS system provide alerts at lower altitudes? Well, as I said before, there's a concern that it'll tell the plane to go down, to descend, and send it into the ground. That's one concern I've seen raised. Takeoff and landing are stressful times for pilots, and TCAS has been designed to avoid sending alerts at lower altitudes to avoid distracting the crew. So that's a reason. The feeling was that anything that's making a warning level alert, a red light flashing, would be very distracting when they should just be flying the aircraft, Olson said. At lower altitudes, planes also have the benefit of air traffic controllers to make sure that flight paths aren't in conflict, Olson said, adding, you want pilots to focus on landing. And again, I have seen experts say that you don't want the alert to start telling a plane to descend to avoid another plane when the plane's at a low altitude, because that could end up with the plane impacting the ground or something on the ground. Okay. So, but you can see that TCAS alerts, I guess, are shut off to some extent. I don't have all the exact, I don't want to start going past my expertise or lack of expertise, but they are shut off in some significant sense at low altitudes. There was also, I'm not going to read the whole thing, there was a good article on this in the War Zone on TCAS, and I think they mentioned the thing here. I'm going to post a link to this article so you can read it. The War Zone is a very good military news site. Here's what air traffic collision avoidance systems can and can't do. So I'm going to post a link to this article, and you can check it out if you'd like. It's a good article. But I think they mentioned the thing about the low altitudes and not wanting a plane to be told to go lower. Yes. There is a safety reason behind the limitations of the system at low altitude, says the article. Namely that providing warnings, anti-collision warnings, at lower altitudes could result in aircraft crews making rapid maneuvers that could be very dangerous during low and slow flight. For example, a flight crew receiving a descend warning at a low level could quickly take action that would end up with the aircraft flying into terrain. So the overall point is that this anti-collision system is not meant to function when, or function the same way, in the same robust way, when a plane is at a low altitude, like this plane was, because it was coming in for a landing. Lull says when the crash was about to happen, noticed that the controller only asked if you have a visual, never says the required call position direction to inform the helo of the danger it was in. So something to note is, and I didn't realize this until tonight when I watched a video with there were people posting clips online of air traffic control, but in the Blanco Lirio video on YouTube, he posted footage from, I think it's called VAS Aviation on YouTube. And what that channel does is they will assemble the more complete air traffic control audio, and they will put the visual of the plane positions over it. I think it's called VAS Aviation. And so, yes, VAS Aviation on YouTube. Anyways, though, if you go watch that video and you listen to the full, more complete, full in the sense of more full than the clips posted online were, if you listen to the longer version that they have posted of the aircraft audio and the air traffic control audio, what you hear is that the air traffic control twice, not once, but twice, reaches out to the helicopter to tell them about the plane. And the first time they reach out, which is the one I think I hadn't heard, the first time they reach out, they tell the helicopter where the plane is. They basically say, hey, I don't know what the exact wording is, but it's like something like, there's a plane ahead of you to the south. You know, they tell them where the plane is relative to them. And they say, you know, here's a heads up, basically, there's this plane out there that you're heading towards. And they tell them where it is. And then the helicopter says, we can see it, basically. And the helicopter asks for visual separation, which means we will be in charge of avoiding it because we can see it, basically. And then later, I want to say it might have been like 30 seconds later or something, but later it appears that the air traffic control noticed the helicopter was still getting closer to the plane. So the air traffic control a second time alerts the helicopter about the plane. Now, if you only hear the second one, you might think, oh, that seems like a pretty quick warning, or they didn't say enough in the warning. But know that there was a first time that air traffic control had already reached out to the helicopter. If you're watching a video about this, or you're looking online and you see some kind of air traffic control audio or hear it, and it only has one interaction between them, you're missing part of the picture, because there were two separate occasions in which air traffic control reached out, at least two, but we know there's at least two where they reached out to the helicopter. And on both times, the helicopter said, we can see it. And the second time the helicopter said that was just around, from what the audio tracks seem to show, just about 10, 15 seconds before the crash. K. Russ says ATC didn't ask why the copter was at the wrong altitude. So that's an interesting point. I've shown you a couple things. One of the articles I just read to you said this, that the helicopter is not supposed to be under 200 feet. I don't know. So if you look here, for example, you can see here, on the NTSB exchange map, you can see that the helicopter is at 200 feet at 1:47:15 Z time. The crash looks like it was around 1:47:58. So actually, the helicopter was at 200 feet at 1:47:23. So 35 seconds before the crash, according to this, 35 seconds before the crash, the helicopter was at 200 feet. So that doesn't leave a lot of... that leaves a maximum of... If these times are right, I mean, maybe they're off by a few seconds, but we're talking roughly 40 seconds. So that doesn't leave lots of minutes for the air traffic control to see that the helicopter is above 200 feet and to have a conversation with them. And also, somewhere in here, because it's only about 15 seconds before the... somewhere in here, when the helicopter's around here somewhere, is when air traffic control reaches out to them and says, "Hey, you know, there's that plane in front of you," something like that. So they are reaching out to them at the time. So, you know, should aircraft traffic control at the time also have noticed that their height was getting higher? Maybe they did notice, but they didn't specifically mention it. I don't know. But just in terms of timing, there's not many minutes of it being at the wrong altitude here. I can't speak to what normally air traffic control would do or say in this position, but you can see the time, and you can see at 1:47:23, it's at 200 feet. Why it started going up there to 300 feet then is a good question, because it's not supposed to be above, from what we understand, not supposed to be above 200 feet. So, you know, I don't know why it was going higher there, if indeed they're not supposed to be at that height. And I will once again post the link to the ADSB Exchange map here with the flight paths and the altitudes and the times. Thanks to Ernie Garcia, our new member, by the way. Let's see here. Coco Bongo says, sounds like they didn't see the plane they hit. That is what a couple of experts I've heard today think, that they were looking at a different plane. But we'll see what the NTSB has to say. We talked about this earlier. The Safier Dragon says that Blanco Lirio goes over how that the max height where they were, the helicopter in that area is 200 feet. And I did mention, I showed the sky vector chart that Blanco Lirio showed, which he says shows that that there's a maximum height in that area of 200 feet. Now, this is an interesting point. Toast and Loaf says, coming right at each other, you'd think they could see them just fine in the center of the windshield. So the thing is, though, it's interesting. They're coming at each other, just to be clear. So they're at this point, when the plane is here, this is about what? About 30, I mean, the other thing to keep in mind here is this is all happening very fast. It's not like this is 2 minutes here. This is about 40 between here and here is 40 seconds. So, you know, about 1 minute and 15 seconds before the crash, the helicopter is going from north to south in this little, it's not directly facing it here. It may be, you know, around 1:46:46, the helicopter's starting to go south, and 1:46:46, the plane would be going north. So maybe for a little while right in here, they're facing each other. But right at the end, they're not directly facing each other, right? The helicopter is moving across now the plane's path. But also, I think Blanco Lirio might talk about when you're directly facing another aircraft, it can sometimes make it harder to see, if I remember right. But just to be clear, they're not spending many minutes approaching each other from head on if you look at the times. But also, when it hit it, according to ADSB Exchange, and there's a video we saw, that Reuters video from before. The Reuters had the surveillance video where the helicopter cuts across the plane's path. And yeah, this is from, which article is it, right here? This article here. Investigators find black boxes after deadly Washington plane crash. Continue search for answers. Remember, this video right
More than 60
here, you do appear to see the helicopter go across the path of the plane. Let me show this again here.
6342.
Radio communications between the air traffic control tower and the Black Hawk showed the helicopter knew the plane was in the vicinity. Radio communications between the air traffic control tower and the Black Hawk showed the helicopter knew the plane.
Mystical Wolf thinks the helicopter should not even be where it is to begin with. Now, the flight path it took, from my understanding, is a flight path, in terms of where it's located over the water and the land, which it would normally take, but the height was at a different height. Lowles thinks the helicopter did not know the plane was there. When the alarm went off, the tower didn't even give it a direction call for the aircraft about to slam into it. They had no idea. LDM thinks it's a stupid place to do training sessions. Thank you, Zeppelin, by the way. Zeppelin says accidents happen, misinformation spreads fast. Let's see. Widowmaker says it's a normal flight path for the helicopter. Let's check out... somebody mentioned the victims. I wanted to talk a little bit about them. We haven't even really gotten into it. Teen figure skaters and their coaches, group of hunters, and students among victims of air crash. This is Spencer Lane, a figure skater who died in the air crash right there. I think there's some more pictures here. Let's see. That is Jinnah Han, another figure skater who died in the plane crash. That is a married couple who won the 1994 World Figure Skating Championships. Vadim Naumov and Evgenia Shishkova. I believe they were coaching now, skating coaches. They died. Condolences to all their families. That's another picture of them when they were skating. Hang on a moment here. Let's get back here. So let's just talk about this for a second. The victims included teen figure skaters returning from a national meet with their mothers and coaches, an Ohio college student coming from her grandfather's funeral, 2 Chinese nationals, and a group of hunters headed back from a guided trip in Kansas. I hadn't even heard about the group of hunters. There were, from the Skating Club of Boston, skaters Jinnah Han and Spencer Lane were among those killed. Also their mothers, Jin Han and Christine Lane, as their coaches, who I mentioned, Evgenia Shishkova and Vadim Naumov, also died. Skating organizations, this is an article from Associated Press, skating organizations in Philadelphia and the Washington area also said some of their young athletes had been aboard the plane. Several athletes on the flight had attended a development camp held after the U.S. Figure Skating Championships ended Sunday in Wichita. A coach in a skating club in Virginia was identified as among the passengers. Cedarville University, Ohio student Grace Maxwell was on the plane. She was returning to campus from her home in Wichita after attending her grandfather's funeral. How terrible. 3 other students from schools in Fairfax County, Virginia, and 6 parents from Fairfax County, Virginia, were also on the plane. Also, A Philippine police colonel was among the dead. He had traveled to the U.S. to inspect equipment the Philippines was planning on to purchase. Wow. 2 Chinese nationals also were among the victims, said the Chinese embassy. They did not offer details. 7 people returning from a guided hunting trip in Kansas were killed. I had not heard about this, according to a Facebook post by Foul Plains, the guide service. The Foul Plains team said they had grown close to the hunters on board the flight over the years and considered them to be family members. The post does not identify the hunters by name, but it says they had spent the past week on a guided hunt, laughing, talking about our families, and sharing memories. Heartbroken is an understatement, the company said. Also, those killed included 4 steam fitters, all members of a United Association union local in Maryland. And there were 3 soldiers aboard the helicopter also. No identities of the crews have been announced, but the wife of one of the helicopter pilots said her husband, Andrew Eves, was killed. And I think also here there's a picture of the, hold on. This is Sam Lilly on the left, although you can't see his face in that picture. Sam Lilly was the first officer above the American Airlines jet, on the American Airlines jet, and he died. And there was Jonathan Campos was the captain of the American Airlines flight, who also passed away. Campos was 34. Lilly was, I don't know how old he was. He graduated in 2018 from college, so he wasn't that old. And flight attendants on the commercial flight included Denasia Elder, Ryan O'Hara was one of the soldiers aboard the Black Hawk helicopter. Andrew Eves as well. Some of our viewers are saying that he was in Sam Lilly was in his late 20s. Yeah, so very sad. In a second, I think I want to take a look. I haven't even had a chance to watch it because I had to sleep during the day-to-day. I would like to take a look at what the NTSB had to say. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Director Prepper, thank you for reminding me. I was going to show you guys this and I forgot. Who said any pictures of the wreckage? There are pictures, photos I can show you of the wreckage on the water. And I actually had pulled some up to show you and I just forgot. So, here's the article here. Mid-air collision kills 67 people in the deadliest U.S. air disaster in almost a quarter century. So here are some of the pictures here. Right here from Associated Press from that article. Let me see if I can get them on the screen for you. That's some of the. It's hard to see. There's some of the pictures are bigger than this, but just so you can see it, this is there. You can see some of the wreckage right there. I have a picture that also shows the helicopter wreckage as well. And this picture doesn't show that. I mean, it shows there's wreckage over there. Hold on. Look at this. There you go. PSA Airlines is, I believe that is the American Airlines owned subsidiary, which operates the American Airlines flight. See, it says PSA Airlines. Hang on, I'll show you something about that. Where is it? FAA. Did the FAA mention PSA Airlines? Now, I remember reading about this. American Airlines must have mentioned it. American Airlines statements. Yeah, the flight was operated by PSA Airlines. That's why. That's from the American Airlines statement. And PSA Airlines is part of the American Airlines group, as you can see. It's their parent company is American Airlines. So that's why you see here PSA Airlines. Retort says, oops, sorry. Retort says the PSA logo was just below the cockpit. It also gives you a sense of, there's some bigger pieces of the plane, but that's pretty violent there to have that piece just torn off. There's another picture here of the wreckage from AP. So are these seats? Or that's a boat. Those seats are on the boat. But that's clearly the fuselage right there. Let me get a little closer in on this picture. You're still not seeing it all. I got to move it over here. There we go. Let me just do something here so I can see the comments. Hang on. I'll move it back. Give me a second. Let me just fix it. Let me fix it. Oh, yeah. One of our viewers points out that this is an engine right here. It looks like it. Crafty Jacks, I'll have to see if I can get an update about the number of bodies recovered so far. I have to look. I don't know what the latest number is. Linda Goldhurst says the picture of the plane is awful. And then I have another one here. Yeah, there is more debris in the water. I'm going to show you a picture of the helicopter in a second. Some of our viewers, Patrick Barnett and Betty Swain, heard about 40. Oh, this is the helicopter right here. I have the picture of it right here. Here's the helicopter. So there's the plane, right? And there's the helicopter. The helicopter's upside down right here. Look at this. There is the Black Hawk helicopter. Wow. Oh, Seek the Truth says the Black Hawk rotary blades ripped the airliner apart. I've been forgetting about that, the helicopter blades, because I've just been thinking that, you just have that impact of the flying aircraft hitting the other one. But that's also a good point. It's a very good point. The helicopter looks like it's largely still in one piece. Yeah, Retort says, amazing it's as intact as it is. You know, one of our viewers said it's not floating. The river's very, very shallow. I know they said last night that it's 8 feet of water, and for all I know, it's not all 8 feet. I mean, you can see here that this helicopter, I need to do this. This helicopter is a little bit away from the plane wreckage. So maybe it's less than 8 feet where the helicopter is, you know? I don't know. Surgeon General says the plane got blindsided. They never knew what happened. Hang on a second here. Okay, I think that might be all the wreckage ones I have from that article. It's this one. Oh, what is this picture? I have a different picture here. Let me pull up this one from the same article. Let me just figure out what the picture is, then I'll show it to you. Oh, I have a couple more. I have a couple more to show you. This is just debris. I don't know what this is. This is debris that was recovered. Is that a seat? What can we see here? This might be a dumb question, but is that a seat? Some sort of seat. Pilot seat? Is this the pilot seat or something? And then I don't know what this stuff is. You can see the tray spot. Oh, you mean like back here? Is this like an iPad? Is this a tablet with a power cord or something? I have no idea. Gringo says a business class seat. So yeah, if I zoom in, it gets kind of blurry. So I mean, that does look like maybe a power cord plugged into whatever this thing is. I don't know, though. One of the viewers said they see a cup holder somewhere. Anyways, I'm sure they have found a lot of different debris there. There's another picture I wanted to show you, which is, if you give me a moment, see if I can find it here. Hang on. Yeah, this is another picture of the wreckage. What are we looking at here? This is from the same AP article. So that is part of the plane. Is that the part we saw before? I don't know. One of the viewers says it looks like the bottom of the plane. Oh, so one of the viewers says it looks like there's seats in there. That's an interesting point. Like in here. I don't know, but you might be right. Anyways, but clearly the plane is in pieces. Jersey Reb says the plane was in 3 pieces. You know, it certainly was violently torn apart in some way. All right, so I wanted to show you those. Again, condolences to the families of everybody on board. It's just terrible. Oh, somebody had asked about fuel. I had something about fuel here. Where was it? Oh, no, that was a different. I'm sorry. I thought I had an article about the fuel, but there was an article about the fuel in the South Korea plane crash, which wasn't about this. So I'm sorry. I thought it was about this, but it wasn't. Somebody had asked about fuel in the water. All right, I think what I'm going to do is, here's what I'd like to do. Here's what I would like to do. I would like to take a look at what the NTSB said, because I haven't even had a chance to see it, what they said. I'm going to also do a quick check here and make sure I haven't missed any updates the last few minutes. Let me do that first. I'm not seeing anything over there. Okay, let's do that. I have the NTSB briefing here. Here it is right here. Let's take a look at it, because I haven't watched it. If you have watched it, you don't have to watch it. But I have not seen it, so I would like to check it out. By the way, thanks to my Miracle Mama, who says, so sad for the families. Yes. Also, Melissa N. Thank you. Lucia Harizo. Yeah, Lucia, I actually posted about that last night. RIA Novosti, which is a Russian state media outlet, said that they had spoken to an American skater who was not allowed on the plane because his dog was too big. Now, I've seen, so we talked about that last night. I'm looking at an article in USA Today right now. Okay. So I'm now seeing that might have been a false report, because the USA Today article says that the skater was actually booked on a flight for Atlanta. Okay. I'm seeing that right now. And they say that originally the Russian outlet had reported that. Okay. So I have to post a correction. Because I had posted, what I posted is I literally posted, this is what the Russian outlet said. And I posted a clip from the Russian outlet. I posted it last night when I said, this is what this Russian outlet is saying. So what I'll do is delete my post, and I'm going to post a correction right now. So I'm glad you asked about that. It turns out that the story in Russian state media last night of the American skater who missed a flight, who was not allowed on the flight that crashed because his dog, while I'm typing this, I'll let you look at the live shot there. Because his dog was too big, was not completely true. And he was actually flying to what does it say? For Atlanta, yes. He was actually trying to fly to Atlanta. Okay. Was the part about the dog true or not? I can't even tell that. I don't even know if the part about his dog being too big was true. Okay, hold on. WSAZ says that he had posted on Instagram his dog size was the reason he wasn't on the plane. What? Oh, he posted on his Instagram. As WSAZ says, I was not supposed to be on the... He said on Instagram, I was not supposed to be on the DC flight. Okay. And in the Daily Beast... Oh, he talked to the Daily Beast. There's an article in the Daily Beast about this. And the skater said... okay. The skater told Daily Beast that he was trying to fly to Atlanta, and his dog size was the reason he couldn't fly to Atlanta. All right, that's what it is. Have deleted my post from last night where I mentioned that the Russian media report. Okay. Sorry to stop the stream. What I hate though, if I post something, what I posted is, I posted Russian media reports this. So that's still true that Russian media reported it. But I don't like leaving old stuff up when it turns out that the story ends up being false. So I like to get these things corrected as soon as possible. So I just wanted to correct that. And one of our viewers had mentioned it, so. Anyways, just to let people know. Let's see here. Okay, so I want to, hey, thanks to Bossmatic G. I appreciate it. I want to take a look at what the NTSB had to say. They are the ones in charge of the investigation, and they did a briefing today. So I want to take a look at what they had to say. By the way, thanks Relila over there on Twitch for your support. Also, shout out to our moderators, Idaho Star, Sarah, and Surly Dev on Twitch, Margaret Riley on Facebook. Thank you. Linda Belk and Larry on X, and also our YouTube moderators like Ruth Krafasi, and Roberts May Queen, all of our other moderators too. And appreciate you guys watching for being here for this late night update, because I slept during the day, so I did want to do an update about the stuff that had been coming out. So let's look right now at what the NTSB had to say. I have not even watched this myself, so we're going to watch it together. It's not that long. Let's see, is it right here? Oh, nope, that's not it. Hold on, I gotta do this. Boop, boop, boop. Let's try this. There, is that it? I think that's it. Oopsie. Give me a second. Let me just get it on the screen for you, and then we can watch it. Here it is. Okay. Here it is. This, and I have to change, it's not live anymore. It's going to be earlier today, or replay of Thursday briefing. Okay. So let's watch this.
Stay within that border there.
Good. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jennifer Homendy, and I'm the chairwoman of the National Transportation Safety Board. The National Transportation Safety Board is an independent federal agency that's charged by Congress with investigating every civil aviation and serious accident and serious incident in the United States and significant events in other modes of transportation. I want to start by expressing our deepest condolences, our sympathies on behalf of the entire board for those who lost loved ones in this terrible tragedy. Our thoughts, our prayers are with you. Entire communities were affected, and we are thinking of you. With me today is Bryce Banning. Bryce is a senior aircraft accident investigator with the National Transportation Safety Board. He's also going to serve as our investigator in charge of this investigation. Also with me today is the entire board. We have Todd Inman, member Todd Inman. Todd is going to serve as the board member on scene, the spokesperson for this investigation. All of the board members will be here. We have Vice Chairman Alvin Brown, member Mike Graham, who lived in Wichita for 20 years, and we also have member Tom Chapman. The NTSB's headquarters is just a mile from here. And so we are all here because this is an all-hands on-deck event. And we're here to assure the American people that we are going to leave no stone unturned in this investigation. We are going to conduct a thorough investigation of this entire tragedy, looking at the facts. Now, with that, I want to level set. When we go to the scene, and we were here last night, we allow the responders to do their important safety mission, which in this case was search and rescue and recovery. We stand back to allow them to do their important safety mission. And so this, for us, is our first full day on scene with our entire crew coming together. We have about nearly 50 people on scene, and in addition to our resources back at headquarters in our labs and throughout the agency. So with that said, we are not going to get into specific facts in this press conference. I want to level set here. We're going to get into our investigative process. As we are able to confirm factual information, we will provide that. I do want to say this is a whole of government effort. I was able to brief, along with others, the President of the United States and the Vice President this afternoon. I want to thank them for their leadership, for their tremendous support of the NTSB, for our investigators, and for the responders that are on scene doing an important mission. I also want to thank Secretary Sean Duffy, who I was communicating with early on after we first got word of this tragedy. We've been working together throughout the day, along with his team at the DOT and within FAA. I also want to thank Secretary Pete Hegseth, who was also integral in working with us today. Chris Rocheleau, the acting administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration. We've heard from many members of Congress on both sides of the aisle, and so I will say this is a tremendous, one more time, whole of government effort. I also want to take a moment and thank the many, many responders that have been on scene. It has been an incredible effort, and I will have a full list that I will provide, that we will provide tomorrow, but I do want to thank them for all their work. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Member Inman for additional remarks.
So today is our first full day on scene. Our investigative team will be on scene as long as it takes in order to obtain all of the perishable evidence and all of the fact-finding that is needed to bring us to a conclusion of probable cause. Our mission is to understand not just what happened, but why it happened, and to recommend changes to prevent it from happening again. Since we're just beginning our investigation, we don't have a great deal of information to share right now. We will keep you informed by giving regular updates as we learn more. Our intention is to have a preliminary report within 30 days, and the final report will be issued once we've completed all of our fact-finding and investigation. Now, we will not be determining the probable cause of the accident while we are here on scene, nor will we speculate about what may have caused this accident. Today, we will be going and having an organizational meeting and establishing our parties to our investigation. We currently have the following parties that are already identified: PSA Airlines, GE Aerospace, Sikorsky, FAA, NACTA, which represents the air traffic controllers, ALPA, which represents the pilots, Army, AFA, which represents the flight attendants. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada will be an accredited representative under Annex 13 of ICAO. They will be supplemented by MHIRG as a technical advisor. They were previously known as Bombardier. The NTSB offers this party status to those companies, government agencies, and associations that have employees, activities, or equipment involved in the accident. We offer that because they will provide technical expertise and relevant information supporting the development of the best possible factual record. Once they join this investigation, they are not permitted to release documents or talk publicly about the investigation without the consent of the NTSB. So I want to stress this. It is only the NTSB that will provide information related to this investigation, with one exception. Regarding the fatalities that occurred, that notification will be handled by the DC medical examiner. We will not be discussing fatalities or names. That will be handled by them as the proper authority. So we want to talk a little bit about our process. We will analyze the facts and determine the probable cause of the accident, and then issue a report of those determinations. I also want to talk a little bit about some additional people that are here with us, and they're very important to us, and that is our family assistance group. Later today, we will be briefing the families. We normally try to do this before a media event, but in this case, they're still arriving. Our family assistance specialists are already working closely with local officials and others to help assist them in their efforts to support everyone that's affected by this accident. And let me just reiterate what the chair said. A loss of life in an aviation accident is very unusual in the United States, and our heartfelt sorrow goes out to everyone that's affected. It affects us, it affects everyone around us. There are a lot of people hurting today. We will help find out what happened. We will do it factually, and we will do it accurately. As part of this, we are going to be standing up some specific working groups. Those working groups will be operations. They will be looking at the history of the accident flight and crew members' duties for as many days before the crash as appears relevant. We'll be forming a structures group, which will be the documentation of the airframe wreckage and the accident scene, including calculation of impact angles to help determine the plane's pre-impact course and altitude. We'll have a power plants group. They will do the examination of the engines and the engine accessories. We'll have a systems group. They will study the components of the plane's hydraulic, electrical, pneumatic, and associated systems, together with the instruments and elements of the flight control system. We'll have an air traffic control group. They will do reconstruction and review of air traffic control systems provided to and including acquisition of pertinent flight track surveillance information, what you might typically think of as radar or ADSB, along with controller pilot communications. We will also have a survival factors group. They will be doing the documentation of impact, forces and injuries, community emergency planning, and all crash and fire rescue efforts. Also, due to the unique nature of this crash, we will be having a helicopter group as well. Lastly, we will have a human performance group, and this will not be its own group. It will actually be a part of the operations, air traffic control, and helicopter groups. They will study the crew performance and all before the accident factors that might be involved in human error, including fatigue, medication, medical histories, training, workload, equipment design, and work environment. Now we're going to take a few questions, but I will again stress, we don't have a lot of information now. We will continue to gather that. We will try to release it as we can, but we will only talk about the facts of the case that we know right now. I'm going to ask, we'll call on a few people. I'm going to ask that you state your name and affiliation.
James Matthews from Sky News. So we heard from President Trump today talking about DEI hiring policies within the FAA and associating that with the cause of this accident. What do you say to that?
Just in case you couldn't hear the question was, we heard from President Trump today talking about DEI hiring as the cause of the crash. What would you say to that?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't hear the remarks. I was briefing House and Senate members, but I believe, Chair, would you like to take that?
As part of any investigation, we look at the human, the machine, and the environment. So we will look at all the humans that were involved in this accident. Again, we will look at the aircraft, we will look at the helicopter, we will look at the environment in which they were operating in. That is standard in any part of our investigation. I'll turn it back.
Chair, can I ask you, has the flight data recorder been recovered yet? And what is the difficulty in a water disaster like this, which presents a very difficult environment for your investigators and the people out of the water?
Well, the question was on the flight data recorders. And we have not recovered the flight data recorders yet. We know they're there.
By the way, later in the day, the NTSB came out and they said they had the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder, I think it was. Just to clarify, because this was earlier in the day. We talked about this earlier on the stream, but just to clarify for you guys, right here, it says NTSB has recovered the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder. Those have now been recovered.
They are underwater. This is not unusual for the NTSB. We have many times recovered flight data recorders in water. We have our lab right here that is about a mile from the NTSB, so it's not unusual. And once we get those, we'll be able to get those read and information from them to be able to provide further information to you. I'm going to turn it back over to Member Inman.
Sir.
Henry with CBS News. Earlier today, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said a mistake was made last night. based off of you all's initial investigations and preliminary findings, have you all been able to tell whether this was human error or mechanical failure?
The question was, is there been human error or mechanical failure? We don't know what we know just yet. We do not know enough facts to be able to rule in or out human factor, mechanical factors. That is part of the NTSB investigative process and where all of these groups will come together. It's one of the reasons why the NTSB is known as the gold standard. We will take the time that's necessary, but I'd also like to reiterate, if we find something that is a significant issue that warrants immediate action, we will not hesitate to make those recommendations and make them public. We have a good track record on that, and we want to continue doing so. Sir?
Hello, Sir. Tom Costello with NBC News. Does it hurt your investigative process, maybe for the chairman, does it hurt your investigative process to have the president already suggesting possible causes here as you try to keep an open mind and begin this investigation?
Thank you.
Tom, with all due respect, I think the press also likes to state what probable cause is before we get to the probable cause. So what I'm going to say is you need to give us time. You need to give NTSB, it's not that we don't have information. We do have information. We have data. We have substantial amounts of information. We need to verify information. We need to take our time to make sure it is accurate. That's best for you. That's important for the families. It's important for legislators who are seeking answers to try to figure out what they're going to do about this. And so it will take time. We do have a lot of information, but we need some time to verify that.
Yeah, member Chase Williams of Fox Business. I'm wondering about the conditions in the tower last night. Were there any performance issues in the past with any of these controllers? Anything of that?
The question is about controllers. As I said, we are just now forming the groups. The controllers do have union representation, which they are entitled to. They'll be working with our party system and our party groups. They'll be conducting interviews. Those interviews will need to be analyzed, transcribed, and other team members will need to look over it. It'll be a long process, but we will go through the entire history.
Sure. So the question was about my briefing for the president and the vice president. As is standard, we offer briefings on our process and what we know, and this was a briefing with the president and vice president and with Secretary Duffy and Secretary Hegseth and also the acting administrator of the FAA. There was discussion on what we know so far and our process, and that was about it.
Ma'am, Chairwoman, Stephanie Ramos with ABC News. Similar to Tom Costello's question, the President has stated what may have caused the crash, stating common sense. Does that affect your progress at all at this early stage?
Yeah, so the NTSB, we conduct an important safety mission where we take a very careful approach. I'm sorry, the question was on speculating during investigations, which is we often hear about. What I will say is we look at facts on our investigation, and that will take some time. And at some point, we'll be able to provide that factual information, as Member Inman said, and provide that hopefully tomorrow.
Hang on a second. Dave.
Dave Jefferson from Reuters. Have you been able to retrieve the black boxes from the helicopter? Has the military decided whether they're going to read those to the NTSB? And what about the ATC tapes?
So the question was about black boxes, which are referred to as black boxes, which are typically orange. We have not recovered any of the boxes involved yet. We feel comfortable and confident that we will be able to.
Again, just to repeat, because I mentioned this earlier, but this was done before. This was done earlier this day, today, on Thursday, the press briefing. After this, the NTSB came out later in the day and said that they had recovered the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder from the plane. They didn't say anything about recovering boxes from the helicopter, if there are such boxes. Maybe he'll say something about that now. But they have recorded the cockpit. They have recovered the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder from the plane.
Right now, recovery of life is probably most important in those that were involved. I mean, there are still ongoing recovery efforts involving the fatalities involved, along with some debris is coming out as well. We will make sure that that perishable evidence is maintained. We have a great process for that. We will probably have more than one black box, so to speak. It's our understanding that the Sikorsky helicopter is equipped with some form of recording devices, and those will be read either by the DoD or by us. We have a good starting relationship with them, and we've already made agreements in order to be able to do that. So I feel comfortable in what we're going to be doing. The other question was about air traffic control. We received a very large package of information from the FAA at about 3 a.m., I believe, this morning. That is still being reviewed and analyzed. I would say there's a lot more information that usually comes in that than what you may find online and people might speculate about. And that is part of that overall process where we take the time to get the information correct and to make sure all the parties are engaged and involved and can fact check that information. One.
Gabe Cohen from CNN. Can you tell me if the NTSB has reviewed this FAA internal report that has been cited by the New York Times indicating that the controller that was on duty at the time of the crash was doing a job that's usually done by two people?
We have not reviewed any specific reports about the controllers at this time, at least from the leadership team. Our investigators are continuing to pull all that information, their personnel records, their files, where they were at, whether they were fatigued. All that information will be part of that investigative process. But right now we can't speculate on anything that may have been reported in the media until we get the opportunity to validate and understand how it impacts the investigation. We're going to take just a few more questions. Sir?
Yes, Orange County, Beaver Magazine. What's the process and the logistics like of bringing the families in? Are they coming into the airport? And how are you going to sort of treat the sensitivity of bringing them to the place where this tragedy happened?
So the question is about the families. And many of those families are still en route. Some are still being notified from both the military and from the commercial crash. There is a family assistance facility that's being stood up by American and PSA Airlines in Bethesda, Maryland. They've already been working on that, standing it up. Our team from our disaster assistance team has also been coordinating with them. We plan on briefing them. It is customary that at some point, if the families wish to go to part of the accident site, that we would arrange such a thing, but it will only be when we know that it's safe, we have the correct perishable evidence, and we can do it in the proper modesty that should be for those family members. It will be a little bit of a process, but it will take some time.
Sir, to follow up on the air traffic control...
No. Sir, or are you?
I know that Marielle Carville with DC News now. We've heard from some witnesses that they saw people were able to come down the slides of the plane. Has there been any indication that people made it off the plane into the water?
Well, again, we will not speak to the fatalities. The D.C. medical examiner will, but I think the...
You know, the question was like, we saw in... What'd she say? We saw or we heard reports that people had come down the slides of the plane? I have not heard that. Now, maybe some of you have. I had not seen any reporting that anyone came down the slides of the plane. Not to say that can't be true. Oh, I'm mute. Am I muted? No, you can hear me, right? Yeah, you can hear me. Yeah, I have not seen any reporting about that. So the question was, I know the question's kind of soft, but that I'll replay the question. It's kind of soft, but she said something like she'd heard a report or heard something about it. I have not heard anything about that.
Yeah, sir, or are you?
I know that Marielle Carville with DC News now. We've heard from some witnesses that they saw people were able to come down the slides of the plane. Is there...
She said, we've heard from some witnesses that people saw that some people were able to come down the slides of the plane? Now, I have not heard that. So, again, maybe she heard it from somebody. Ellie Travel says there was a report about it, but it was proven false later. Again, I haven't seen anything about it. Jennifer Rochelle said slides weren't even opened, I heard. Well, let me just say this. I'm not aware of anyone or any expert who's reported that they even saw any kind of sign that slides were deployed on that plane. Anyways, I just wanted to let you know that's what the question was. So I don't have any information on that.
Has there been any indication that people made it off the plane into the water?
Well, again, we will not speak to the fatalities. The D.C. medical examiner will, but I think the D.C. fire chief this morning very succinctly said correctly that we believe there are no survivors.
But were they off the plane? Like, did they even get out of the plane?
Last question.
So, hang on one second. Right now, we're going through the debris fields. Nothing we've seen would indicate that maybe slides or chutes were deployed. It was a very quick, rapid impact, but we've seen nothing in that regard so far from the evidence we have, but we still need to verify all of that information. One more question?
Are you going to be looking at the family member's cell phone?
Go ahead.
Jeff Cook, ABC News. What do you know about the altitude of the helicopter at the moment of impact? And can you talk about the procedure for such helicopters in that area?
The question was about the helicopter procedures. And in D.C., it's kind of a unique environment. We've been getting briefed more and more by the FAA. I'm not an air traffic control specialist, but they're actually helicopter zones, if you will, or tracks. And this one was transiting, I believe, from track 1 to 4 as part of their normal procedure. If you live in D.C., you see a lot of helicopters going down into this area. So there's a very well-defined system in that regard. As far as altitude, until we get the additional information, we can't validate or basically corroborate any of that until we get more of the electronic data and the data that's on the plane. I do want to clarify one question that also came about cell phones. You know, in today's age and time, a lot of electronics and other devices do contain a lot of different information. We've found on a number of our accidents that we actually are notified through a smartphone that may sense that. As part of our process, we will obviously treat all of the effects of the deceased with dignity. We are already starting to pull that information together. If we feel that it's necessary to find or pull some of that information, we will work with the families and make sure we do it in a manner that's respectful for them and their privacy. But right now, we don't have any plans specifically on that amount, on that area until we need to. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that was the NTSB briefing. No facts. They're not getting into causes yet or anything. They're going to gather facts. They say they expect to have a preliminary report within 30 days. That preliminary report might not contain a probable cause, or maybe it would. I don't know. Oh, hold on. Did somebody else say something there? Let me just make sure here. Nope, they leave. They did leave. Okay. And I don't know when their next briefing will be. By the way, I want to just mention a couple comments that people made. Our viewer wrote in, Ariel, who said, has the possibility been ruled out there was a hostile takeover of the helicopter and the helicopter deliberately rose in height to collide with the plane? So nothing has been ruled out that I'm aware of. I will say I haven't heard any kind of report suggesting this was an intentional act. That doesn't mean it wasn't, but right now there's no reporting or nothing I've seen out there that's evidence where somebody, there's no report, there's no expert saying that I've seen saying this is what I think the data that so far reports, but I'm sure everything's going to be looked into. So, I can't tell you. Nothing's been ruled out. I mean, certainly the NTSB hasn't ruled anything out. So they will get into it. But so there's nothing about the situation that that it has seemed to set off alarm bells. Now, maybe there's certain people out there claiming it is, claiming it's intentional. No one I've seen who I feel would be reliable has suggested that, and the people I've seen who I think know about this kind of stuff, aviation experts, have other explanations. As I mentioned, there's a couple of aviation experts I watched videos of today. They think that the helicopter saw a different plane and thought it was the American Airlines plane. If you're interested in that stuff, we talked about that a lot on the beginning of the stream, so you can go back and replay. But anyways, they haven't ruled anything out. So we'll see what they say. But I'm sure they're not going to, that's something they would consider and they'd want to rule out. And then, Ariel is talking about how the initial data from like ADSB exchange seems to show that the helicopter gained some altitude in the seconds before the collision. And it was going above where it was supposed to be. So yeah, a perfectly good question. If it did gain altitude, why was it gaining altitude right in the seconds beforehand? So they would want to certainly answer that. And Damon HR viewer says human error seems obvious unless the military helicopter had issues. Look, we'll be interesting to hear more about what the military has to say. And Damon says he also likes the Blanco Lirio channel on YouTube. Yes, it's an excellent aviation accident video channel where he analyzes accidents and gives good explanations about some of the facts involved and offers analysis of them. Blanco Lirio, excellent video of today about the crash. BlancoLirio, Blanco Lirio on YouTube. Check it out. Karen Moore says, is there any evidence that ATC was warning the jet? Yeah, so without going into a whole rehash, as we've talked about earlier in this broadcast, air traffic control audio that I have heard, for example, in the Blanco Lirio video, where I believe he was using the VAS Aviation video about this, air traffic audio that's been made public shows that there were at least 2 occasions where the air traffic control reached out to the helicopter about the plane, and that both times the helicopter said it could see the plane. The second time was just seconds before the accident, and both times the helicopter asked for visual separation, which is where they are asking air traffic control to basically allow the helicopter to have complete responsibility for avoiding the plane because they can see it. So they were saying both times the helicopter told the air traffic control, basically, we can see the plane and we can see it well enough to avoid it. You don't have to help us avoid it. We can see it well enough to do so, but they still collided with the plane. But yes, at least twice, we know that air traffic control mentioned the plane to them. Let's see here. And then Tyler from Cape Cod mentioned the Captain Steve video. That's another good one, which a bunch of people have watched. His name is Captain Steve, but I think it might be Steeve on YouTube. He posted it. He's a pilot. I watch his videos on TikTok, and he also, like Juan Brown on Blanco Lirio, thinks that what happened was that the helicopter was looking at another plane, but thought it was the American Airlines plane. Yes, his channel is Captain Steeve on YouTube, so you can check that out as well if you want. Let's see here. Again, we'll wait and see what the NTSB has to say. Bella sent me something from FAA about flying hours, and Bella mentioned that this FAA site says for a commercial pilot certificate, they require 250 total hours, but Airlines usually may require 1,000 or 2,000 or more. Hold on a second here. She's sending that to me because of the reports today about the flight time of the pilots. Here, is it right here? Let's see. Yes, so I'm looking at an article from ABC News, and ABC News says that the instructor pilot had more than 1,000 flight hours in a Black Hawk, and the pilot being evaluated had more than 500 hours in the aircraft. The pilot being evaluated was in command of the flight, but if an emergency were to occur, the instructor would take control of the helicopter. That's according to an Army official who told reporters that in a briefing Thursday afternoon. So Bella was just sending that about the hours as a perspective. Thank you, Bella. And then someone sent me... Oh, a couple of viewers have mentioned a channel called Pilot Debrief. I haven't watched that video yet, but True Brit and at least one other viewer mentioned the YouTube channel Pilot Debrief. They said they liked that channel for their analysis videos of accidents. So that's something else you might want to look at. And so I was just trying to get to some of the comments that people were sending me. Try to get to as many as I can. Heidi J. Martin says, where is the fire damage on the wreckage? So I guess Heidi is mentioning that in like photos we've seen of the plane wreckage in the water, you don't obviously see like giant black soot marks or something. I understand the question. It's an understandable question. I don't know enough about the science of all this to know. Would you not expect to see those kind of marks? Could there be stuff that burned that we just don't even see at all? So it's a perfectly good question. There was some sort of explosion, which you can see in the videos. We saw a couple of those videos before when the two aircraft collided. But I don't know what you'd normally expect the wreckage to look like. But I understand your question. One of the viewers said, what is this from? Is this a viewer or somebody on X? One of the viewers said, AmRev says, if you don't know if a story is true, then why the heck are you reporting it? I don't get this. This goes with you and everybody else that reports news. They say I can't confirm this, but then they tell the story. I don't get it. Well, what I think you're referring to when I was talking about last night, when a Russian state media outlet reported that a skater had said that he missed the flight to Wichita because his dog was too big. So to be clear, what I reported was true. What I reported was Russian state media site RIA Novosti says this. There's a difference between saying this outlet says X and just, oh, this happened. I didn't say this happened. I didn't say, hey, guess what, everybody? A guy missed his flight because his dog was too big. Go back and watch the video or read my post. Well, you can't now because I deleted the post, but I can tell you what it said. It literally, on my post on X, I literally cut and pasted the report from RIA Novosti, and that's what I said on the air as well. So I certainly think it can be informative and important if a news outlet is reporting something, but I'm always very careful on saying, this news outlet is saying this. So There's a difference between saying this news outlet is saying this, and then it's up to you, the viewer, to decide whether you think that's a big deal or not. But I'm not telling you this just happened. So I would encourage you to pay careful attention to the specific language I use. And don't put words in my mouth that I didn't say. Why delete it? Because what happens if you don't delete old posts? If you missed it, it turned out that the skater revealed today, the skater said today that he was actually flying to Atlanta, and that report was false about him. He had been flying to Atlanta, not to Wichita. So I don't want to have the old post up there, because then it's like people will just get confused. Why have stuff up there? If it's a report that turned out to be false, why should I leave that posted up there? One of our viewers said, I think he's saying, why does anyone ever report the news ever? Okay, guys, it is getting late. All right, it's 3:34 a.m. By the way, thanks to Board Activity and Alicia Alexander, who says, I would be interested to see the full manifest. I'm not aware that has been released yet by American Airlines. I'm assuming it will be at some point. Thank you, AJ Krause, for the gift memberships, by the way, and IR Geek and Joni Mahoney. I think what we're going to do is, because it's getting late, we could obviously talk more about this, but I would rather end earlier and go to bed earlier and then be able to get up. I'll try to get back on some sort of normal schedule. We've had a lot of nights. The schedule's been all over the place lately. So I'm sorry to wrap it up, but I think I'm going to wrap this up now. And then, I certainly assume that we might be doing more coverage of this. If you missed it, feel free to rewind and watch. And again, I would definitely recommend the Blanco Lirio video. And there's other videos online you can watch about the flight too. But one I really liked, and I'll post a link to it one more time, was Blanco Lirio's update about this accident today. And I will post a link in the chat to that video. I'm posting it right now. It's about 10 minutes long. I think it's really worth a watch. So I really appreciate you guys tuning in at such a late hour for this late night update. And I will also post on my X account. Subscribe to the channel, follow the channel, Agenda Free TV. Turn on notifications. I don't know in advance usually when we're going live, so turn on notifications. We have a free notification system. It works really good. It's really reliable. You sign up once, you get sent a notification every time. It's free. It's called our Discord notifications. So sign up for those to get a message whenever we're going live. And the link to that is, the moderators will post a link to sign up for the notifications. You can also find that link in our description of this video on YouTube and Facebook. So sign up for those. Also, I will post news updates on my X account, @Lookner on X. I post updates there. I post there when I'm on the air sometimes too. But you can follow me there for breaking news updates. I will post a link in the chat. Also, a huge thanks to our moderators who have been here all through this story and all of our stories. They are the ones who make it so that we can even have chat rooms here. We couldn't have it without them. Really appreciate it. Ruth Krafasi over there on YouTube. Thank you, Ruth. Roberts May Queen has been here. And all of our other YouTube moderators, thank you. Linda Belk and Larry and Misha over on X, on Twitch. Idaho Star, LB Prairie Dawn, Sarah, Surly Dev, thank you so much. And thank you, by the way, speaking of Twitch, to Table of Titans for subscribing. Hold on a second here. Also, thanks to our Facebook moderators. Margaret Riley has been moderating. Thank you. I think Christina Neal was here. Thank you. Paul Anderson, thank you so much, Paul. Thanks to all of our moderators for being here. And also thanks to everybody who donated to the channel too. That is super nice of you guys. That is what keeps this channel on the air, so I really appreciate your support. Thanks to Board Activity for being a member. By the way, I'm not aware yet if I find out of some like there's like some official like GoFundMe to help the victims or something like that, I will certainly let you know. I'm not aware of some kind of, overall official catch-all donation thing or something. So I will keep an eye on that. If we're broadcasting about this and I'm aware of it, I'll certainly pass it along. And certainly condolences to the families of all of the victims. All 67 people on both aircraft passed away. And let's see here. Oops. Also, we do have a, give me one moment here. We do have a chat where you can chat with other viewers when we are not live. Our Discord chat, a lot of our viewers really like doing that. You can check that out. It's free. Same link as the signing up for the notifications link. So check out the Discord chat, and a big thanks to our Discord mods for all you do as well. Thank you also Director Pepper from Canada, for your support. Another good way to find out when we're going live is to follow us on X at Agenda Free TV. I always post there before we go live. I post scheduling updates, information about the channel there. So follow, if you'd like, on X at Agenda Free TV. And a quick, for people who watch on YouTube, I would suggest that you turn on the YouTube notifications. Those can help you figure out when we're going live or when we're live. If you follow on YouTube, what you need to do, though, to turn on the notifications over there is, so once you subscribe on YouTube, then what you need to do is click the notifications bell and choose all notifications. So if you subscribe on YouTube, make sure you have the bell checked and you have all checked. Shout out to our Facebook subscribers. Thank you so much for supporting the channel over there on Facebook by subscribing, like Sharon Klassen Goslin. Thank you, Sharon. Robert Real II, Eve Richards, Diane Allworth, Michael Clayton, Margaret Riley, Kay Lowry Body, and all of our other Facebook subscribers. Thank you so much for your support over there. Our Twitch subscribers, really appreciate the support. People like Shaggy and Wall Street, Table of Titans. Oh, Discord link? Table of Titans wanted the Discord link. One of the mods, maybe I can do the commands work? Let me see. Do we have a Discord command in Twitch? Let's see. Oh, there it is. It did work. I got it. I did it myself. There it is. I just posted it in the Discord chat. Thanks again to all of our mods, though. Let's see there. Sir Checks-a-Lot, thanks so much for subscribing over there on Twitch. Factory Rejects, MX, thank you for subscribing on Twitch. And thank you to, hold on a second, all of our other subscribers over there. Underjolt, Sandy Doggo, thank you. Douthis, thank you. And thanks to our viewer, hold on a moment here. Oh, thanks Clearly Crystal Clear for subscribing, thank you. And Charm65, thanks for watching. And also thanks to our YouTube members, such as Director Pepper and Captain Jerry Donnelly, Riri Patton. Thanks so much for being members and supporting the channel. Jennifer Rochelle, TJ Adams, Dr. McRib, Crypto King, Chris N, The Lucky Minute, Jean Romaine, Aussie Joe, Justin D. Thank you for being members. Tallulah A. Bell, IR Geek, Thomas Darwin, Sue S., Patrick Barnett, Alicia Alexander, Board Activity, David Gray, AJ Krause, Justin D., Sabin Nation, Sean137, Dorothy, thanks for being members. Susan Mann, Gary Pates, Mystical Wolf, Celeste, Bullish Dragon. Did I say Thomas Darwin? I can't remember. David Gray, all of our other YouTube members, and everybody else for watching. Appreciate everybody tuning in late night. Smelly Cat, we talked about the victims a little bit earlier on the stream, so you can rewind if you want to see that. We talked about some various victims who had been identified. Sad. as one of our viewers said, a bunch of different types of people who did different things. Okay, thank you, Blue Moon Bonsai, for watching. And Darian Gales. All right, guys. We are going to start wrapping this up. So if there's big updates later today, because it is Friday. If there's big updates later today, we will cover it. Did I thank Paul? I think I thanked Paul Anderson for modding. Thank you, Paul. And thank you, Peachy Keen, for watching as well. Billy Joe Drage, Dennis McNeely, and everybody else watching. All right, guys. That is it right now. This has been our live nighttime update about the developments in the plane and helicopter crash. That is it for now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon with more live breaking news coverage right here at Agenda Free TV.